what ultimately happened in China? Was something released? Was it an accident? And what happened in the other parts of the world? What is your thoughts?
Well, yeah. So here's a tiny problem. The situation was set up for what I like to refer to as plausible deniability. You have, on the one hand, you have the lovely ability for the U.S. and China to both point to each other and say, "You did it," and "You did it," and the fact of the matter is, we did it. Right? There is no question that by 2015 we had actually seen a joint U.S.-Chinese publication that anticipated the variations that are now SARS coronavirus 2. So the reason that we don't have a real good answer to the question in the public media is because media is asking the wrong question. They say, did China do it? And China goes, no. And the U.S. goes, well, China goes, well, did the U.S. do it? And the U.S. goes, no. And the answer is, nobody's asking the right question, which is, did you do it together? And the answer is yes. But nobody asks that question. So let's put it out there. The fact of the matter is, this was actually done as a joint exercise. Now, that's a statement I can make, provable by papers, by grant applications, and by patent applications. The next corollary to that, which is where we leave the reservation of fact, and then we enter into the world of conjecture. And let me make it abundantly clear, that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm entering in the world of conjecture. I think that the Chinese government and the US government were in a trade war from which neither one of them had a path to extricate themselves. I think there was no way that you were going to get an end to what was going on because we are at a systemic, global, geopolitical, and geoeconomic transition of power. And anytime that happens, whoever is the incumbency knows that they don't want to lose the incumbency, and they know somebody else is going to take it, and that's always an awkward situation. At the end of the Second World War, or towards the end of the Second World War, we had Bretton Woods, which made the US dollar the trading dollar, despite the fact that the German mark and the British pound were far more attractive currencies to use because the US dollar hadn't even been around that long. So these kinds of changes happen, and they happen during war, and they happen during large-scale transitions. In the case of the Bretton Woods Agreement, they happened around the convergence of the end of the Second World War and the rise of petroleum as a national and international trading platform. So these things happen. But the problem that we had going into 2018, 2019, is we were beating our chest in the US about how important trade was for us, and China was beating its chest about how important trade was. And the problem was we were going into this mutually assured destruction point of no clear winner, no clear loser. And the fact of the matter is we needed to have something in the wings to blame for the transition. If you think for a moment that the premier of China, or if you think for a moment that the president of the United States was going to go, you know what, I've thought about it, you're right. That was never going to happen. Now, China for years has been devaluing its currency. It's been devaluing its treasury holdings. It officially marked down its US treasury holdings several years ago. Like, we know that they have been shorting the future of the US. And we know that we've been exposed to a single point failure trading risk with China for a long time. In fact, that was started in 1971 when the Nixon administration started liberalizing trade and currency policy and so forth and so on. So we've known that this day was coming. If you go back and look at US trade documents from 1986, we knew that there was going to be a problem of this past 3 years creation, where China would finally overtake a number of US industries and a number of US technologies. We knew it was coming. It's been on the horizon for a long time, but nobody had a plan on how to do a smooth transition, which means you need to have an event. And an event can be anything, but it would be really convenient if you could conscribe the entire world into the event, which is exactly what the United States, represented by NIAID Anthony Fauci, and the Center for Disease Control China, represented by Dr. Gao, did in September when they planned a global pandemic preparedness exercise, which had to be done by September 2020, when they planned that, my assertion is that was an act of war. That was an act of war perpetrated not by one country against another country. It was an act of war perpetrated by a corporate industrial complex that decided that the governments that they had acquired through influence, through lobbying, through everything else, wasn't playing ball anymore, and they needed to assert power over all of them. And the fact of the matter is, if you look at who's been the winners, you can't point to a country that's been the winners, but you can point to corporations that have been the winners. And if you really want to know probably who funded the whole exercise, there's probably a pretty good short list to start with.